Imagine you finally bought your dream home under the boundless, sun-drenched Australian sky. You poured your entire life savings into a beautiful property, drawn by the illusion of the great Australian dream, a lush backyard, endless summers, and unbreakable financial security. But now turn the tap. Nothing comes out but a dry, rattling hiss. The soil in your garden is cracking like shattered porcelain, and your pristine neighborhood is quietly sinking into panic. You haven't bought a sanctuary, you've bought a trap. Across the sunburnt country, an invisible crisis is boiling over. This is not a dystopian future, this is happening right now. The harsh reality is that Australia is running out of water, and as the reservoirs turn to dust, the very foundations of the housing market are collapsing. Entire communities are watching their property values plummet by up to 60%, leaving families stranded in homes they cannot sell and cannot survive in. Your life savings evaporated. Today, we are counting down the 10 cities in Australia facing imminent water collapse, where the real estate market is drowning in debt while the taps run dry. And you will want to stay until the end, because the city sitting at number 1 on our list was once considered one of the wealthiest regional hubs in the nation, but is now just days away from what officials are calling a total municipal failure, where residents may be forced to abandon their homes forever. As we journey through this unfolding catastrophe, if you want to uncover more hidden truths about our changing world and the markets that control our lives, make sure you hit that subscribe button to join our community before the next crisis hits. Now let us step into the dust and begin our descent into the 10 Australian cities where water scarcity is erasing millions in real estate wealth. At number 10 is Mildura, Victoria. Sitting on the banks of the mighty Murray River, you would think water is an eternal guarantee. But the reality is a nightmare of allocations and agricultural warfare. You look at the sprawling vineyards and citrus orchards, once the pride of the region, now being bulldozed because the water required to keep them alive costs more than the land itself. Property values on the outskirts have taken a massive hit, dropping by over 15% in just 12 months. Families who bought agricultural plots are watching their equity turn to dust as the river levels fluctuate violently, strangled by upstream mismanagement. Just up the highway, the situation escalates. At number 9 is Dubbo, New South Wales. This thriving inland city was supposed to be a safe haven for young families fleeing the exorbitant housing prices of Sydney. You moved here for a better life, only to find the Macquarie River, the city's lifeblood, shrinking into a chain of stagnant, algae-choked puddles. The local government has repeatedly issued severe water restrictions, forcing you to watch your property degrade. Real estate agents report a chilling stagnation. Listings sit on the market for hundreds of days. Why would anyone buy your home when the town's primary water supply is constantly threatened by historic droughts? You are trapped, paying a mortgage on a home in a town where the most precious commodity is slipping away. The desperation deepens as we cross the border. Coming in at number 8 is Stanthorpe, Queensland. High in the granite belt, you used to rely on cool climates and reliable rain. But imagine waking up one morning to the realization that your town has officially run completely out of water. For months, you and your neighbors have survived solely because fleets of water trucks are driving up the highway every single day to pour emergency supplies into the town's depleted dams. The financial toll on this community is catastrophic. Local businesses, especially those reliant on tourism and agriculture, are shuttering their doors permanently. You drive down the main street and see for sale signs rusting on the fences of gorgeous heritage homes. Desperate sellers are slashing asking prices by 20, 30, even 40%. But buyers are terrified of inheriting a property that relies on trucked-in water to flush the toilets. Families are fracturing under the stress, unable to liquidate their assets to escape the drying landscape. Escaping this nightmare seems impossible when the neighboring regions are suffering the exact same fate. At number 7, we find Tenterfield, New South Wales. You might know it as the birthplace of the Australian nation, a town steeped in rich history and lush pioneer aesthetics. Yet history cannot quench thirst. When the local dam level plummeted to a terrifying 1%, the reality of the climate crisis slammed into the local economy like a freight train. You stand in the town square, surrounded by desperate residents queuing for bottled water allocations. The real estate market here hasn't just slowed down, it has practically frozen. Mortgages are defaulting because the agricultural sector, the primary employer, has been decimated by the dry earth. Who wants to buy a historical mansion when you cannot legally water the lawn or even run a washing machine without incurring massive fines? The human impact is devastating. Elderly residents who plan to fund their retirement by selling their family homes are now trapped, their life's work rendered virtually worthless by the lack of rain. Moving to number 6, the crisis bleeds into Warwick, Queensland. Known as the Rose City, you once walked through public gardens bursting with colour. Today, those roses are dead. The Condamine River is struggling, and the town's water security is dangling by a thread. The emotional toll of watching your community slowly wither is matched only by the financial devastation. Bank foreclosures are quietly ticking upward as farmers and local business owners default on their loans. You are witnessing a slow-motion economic collapse where the value of a house is directly tied to the water level of the Leslie Dam. When the dam drops, your net worth drops with it. Entire families are packing up their lives into moving trucks, abandoning homes they couldn't sell, leaving behind empty shells on streets that used to echo with the sounds of sprinklers and children playing. The exodus has officially begun. As the countdown intensifies, the crisis shifts from economic stagnation to pure survival. At number 5 is Walgett, New South Wales. Imagine turning on your kitchen tap to pour a glass of water for your child, only to be met with a foul, salty liquid that burns the throat. When the Namoy and Barwon rivers failed, the town was forced to switch to Great Artesian Basin bore water. But this water is heavily laden with sodium, pushing residents into a public health crisis. You cannot drink it, you cannot use it to run medical equipment, and you certainly cannot use it to maintain a home. Property values here haven't just dropped, they have crashed into the abyss. Houses are being listed for less than the cost of a luxury car, yet they remain unsold. The emotional despair in Walgett is suffocating. You see communities rallying together to distribute donated bottled water just to survive the week. The illusion of property ownership building generational wealth has been completely shattered here, replaced by the daily grinding anxiety of securing clean drinking water. The escalation continues down the river system. At number 4 is Broken Hill, the legendary silver mining city that built the Australian economy. You are standing in the heart of the outback, but the real tragedy isn't the isolation, it's the Menindee Lakes, the city's historic water source, running completely dry. The Darling River, the artery of the region, ceased to flow, leaving behind a string of toxic blue-green algae blooms. The government had to build a multi-million-dollar pipeline just to keep the city from dying of thirst. But for the real estate market, the damage was already done. You see the mass exodus of young professionals and families fleeing the uncertainty. Why would you invest your hard-earned money in a city where the water tastes of chemicals and the natural environment is collapsing? Property prices plummeted as fear over long-term sustainability gripped the market. Dropping to number 3, we arrive at the epicenter of the river system's collapse, Menindee, New South Wales. The images are forever burned into your mind. Millions of dead, rotting fish suffocating in the Darling River, their white bellies gleaming under the harsh sun, creating a stench of death that blanketed the entire town. You bought a riverside property here expecting tranquility. Instead, you got a front-row seat to an ecological apocalypse. Real estate here is effectively paralyzed. Nobody is buying. The homes overlooking the river, once considered premium real estate, are now worthless monuments to environmental mismanagement. Families are economically imprisoned, forced to breathe the toxic air of a dying ecosystem because their wealth is trapped in unsellable timber and brick. The community is devastated, mourning the loss of the river that gave them life, income, and identity, while watching their financial futures drown in the stagnant mud. The catastrophe reaches a fever pitch as we approach the final 2. At number 2 is Wilcannia, New South Wales. You are now looking at a community that has been repeatedly pushed to the absolute brink of existence. When the river runs dry here, it doesn't just mean a loss of income, it means the erasure of cultural identity and public health. You walk through the town and feel a palpable, heavy sorrow. The riverbed is a dusty, cracked scar through the earth. Residents are entirely dependent on unreliable backup systems, and the town frequently faces acute water emergencies. Real estate in Wilcannia is no longer an investment, it is a liability. Homes have lost virtually all market value, leaving the local population structurally impoverished and entirely trapped. You see generations of families who have lived on this land forced into a heartbreaking displacement, migrating to coastal cities not by choice, but because the environment has forcefully evicted them. The economic and emotional ruin is absolute, paving the way for our final, most shocking destination. This brings us to number 1, Bourke, New South Wales. Remember the town we teased at the very beginning? This iconic outback hub, once a symbol of boundless Australian prosperity and agricultural might, is now staring down the barrel of total municipal failure. Back at Bourke used to mean adventure. Now, it means a terrifying ground zero for water collapse. Imagine a town where the water supply is so precarious that local officials prepare contingency plans for full-scale evacuation. You drive past rows of abandoned properties, their windows boarded up, yards consumed by dust. Property values have experienced a catastrophic collapse, with some homes selling for absolute fractions of their former worth, bought only by opportunistic speculators, betting on a miracle that may never come. For the families who are forced to remain, the psychological torment is simply unbearable. You wake up every single day, checking the water levels, knowing that if the reservoirs fail completely, you will have to walk away from everything you own with nothing but the clothes on your back. Your entire life's savings, your memories, your legacy, all turning to dust as the Darling River dries up and the soil blows through the empty streets. The local economy is suffocating. Generations-old agricultural businesses are shuttered, and the harsh, undeniable reality sets in. Without water, a city is nothing more than a graveyard of brick and timber. The illusion of endless real estate growth has been violently stripped away here, leaving behind a stark, terrifying warning for the rest of the world. Water is not just a resource, it is the ultimate currency of human survival, and in these 10 towns, the bank is completely empty. As the relentless Australian sun beats down, these fading communities serve as a haunting reminder that no housing market, no matter how strong, can survive without the one element we all so foolishly take for granted: